Twilight Garage podcast is brought to you by The Red Onion, the Bay Area's finest hamburgers, located at 11900 San Pablo Avenue in El Chorrito. Tell them Twilight Garage sent you.
Twilight. We join you at your request, cracking out more than 200 subscribers. Thank you so much. We love you. We love you. Spending your life with us here, as we always like to acknowledge and thank you. Hope we're here making your time a little better.
We are riding on the wings of legends, right? Those that have come before us. Shout out and love to all of you.
Everyone on the yellow brick road. We are standing on the shoulders of giants. We love you. All this information is coming to a head. We're able to get down to the minutia of it because the big pieces have been knocked down by some serious greats ahead of us. And really great to have you here, my friend, again, the brother ship connection, Mr. K.C. Fields, the big case. Wow. What goes on, brother? We left it off at a pretty exciting point. Jay Sebring, not a pussy, but we're here just physically walking up. We've talked about the porch. I think we're in agreement. I don't think there was a conflict at the front door. Do you?
No.
Do you give any credence to that? Okay. So Tex is now in the house. Wojtek Kowski has been confronted. He's waking up dumbfounded to be pummeled with blows and insults and potentially the most famous line.
Yeah, and I really don't believe that. I don't think that Tex ever said that. I don't know where that came from. Tex wasn't that well spoken of a guy. Like he said that he didn't remember saying it. I don't know if it's something that Susan came up with or what.
Who came up with that? It's such a weird line. I couldn't. Yeah,
I love the way that Tarantino, though, in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, joked about it. You know, because when Brad Pitt's being wheeled out into the ambulance, they ask him, "Well, what did the guy say?" You know, he said, "I'm the devil and I'm here to do some devil shit." I started laughing so hard in the theater when I heard that.
Dude, after the character kind of, the profile of Susan Atkins was roasted with a fucking flamethrower and then into the pool, like, ooh.
The Asian Susan Atkins.
Oh my God. What a weird. These movies are so funny the way they portray the girls. Like, what was that one? Oh fuck! Was it Charlie Says or something? It was the girls in prison with the counselor.
Yes, that's it. Yeah,
the UC Santa Cruz broad, right? So all of a sudden, Susan Atkins is very glamorous and graceful and well spoken, and Leslie Van Houten becomes very darky and not so bright. And it's like, wait a minute. You look at Leslie Van Houten in the lineup.
Beautiful, smart.
Hey, what do you want? Like for me, I have some extreme biases due to my character. And that's why I love Lynn. And, I don't really care for some of the other girls who survived and went the perpetrators, because as we've developed, not to cut you off with your own theory, the D-team theory. Now explain that, because I think you're right. I think the people
real quick, I want to ask you, what do you think of Dakota Fanning's portrayal of Lynn in Once Upon a Time in Mexico, or in Hollywood?
In Mexico. Can you imagine putting those together? Like Once Upon a Time, Dawn to Dusk.
Yes.
Dude, Danny Trejo's last hurrah. He's gonna show up in a fucking quadriplegic outfit as a robot. I am dancing around this because I personally have very, very deep feelings for Lynn. She's an absolutely wonderful, wonderful individual. Just a joy to behold. So I know she didn't care for the film. I was explaining to her that it was a piece of entertainment. It wasn't an accurate portrayal. And I gotta say, if you think about it, if someone came to the ranch in a less than flattering way, if they didn't come up like, hey, what's up? Is this Steve Grogan? Are you Chowderhead? Hey, wow, you're Gypsy. You must be Red. Damn. Or just dumbfounded by the whole thing and waiting to be led around, because they would be hyped before you showed up. Like, they got you all excited. You're going to meet Charlie. You're going to get to meet Red. If you didn't show up like that, I could totally see her fucking you off. Why wouldn't she?
I don't think that, like, I thought that Dakota Fanning came across played it a little bit too edgy, a little bit too, like, angry.
Yeah, but
like,
it was good.
like, who are you? You know, like,
yeah, but I could see her being a little cocky, like, you know, they're watching TV and she's like, beat it. I don't think she spoke to the girls like that. That's not her character that I've observed. That was 50 years prior, but who knows? But for the movie, for her to be kind of salty, because it needed to set up an adversarial relationship with the Brad Pitt character, which, if you haven't seen the film, he's playing the role of the great Lone Ranger himself, who came to visit, Dudley Moore.
Yeah, I can't
Dudley
remember.
Moore. I love Dudley Moore, though. Man, Arthur, if you ever get good. But anyway, we're getting lost here. And the whole thing of the chasing around, the D team is there. People who all owe Charlie, I felt.
Yeah, tell me about Linda. What do you think on that?
I feel that she literally got away with murder. I feel that she was a big time accomplice. I think she had access to grind with people up there. I think some of that's true. I think some of what Nick says, there's some credence to that, which is dangerous, slippery stuff. Because if you give Nick much to work with, he'll really go pretty far with it. But I think he was in a position that all of them were in. They all owed Charlie. And my mind works in a way that's very prison related. So I can't speak for Charles Manson. But if I was looking at this in an objective point of view, what you said made a lot of sense. Is D team. These people were fourth tier people. Susan is a big name in the family, but she's a pain in the balls.
They sent away multiple times.
Bringing heat on the family, constantly having some sort of vaginal outburst, syphilitic feet, as I like to mention, just like overripe tomatoes ripping open during the commission of these murders. Just the most disgusting thing, right? That's how it got translated into Tarantino's movie. It's movie making, and people don't understand. When you're the subject of a movie, you're probably not going to like the film.
But Tarantino has a major thing with feet, because even throughout his book, it's always mentioning feet, and feet is code for something with him.
We'll look at that. But
yeah,
so these other things happen. So she's number one. Get the fuck out of here. I don't care if you come back, right? You owe me. I'm sick of you. She's constantly, there was the stealing of drugs, there was the hash, there was the this, there was the that. He's always trying to save face with everybody, but he wouldn't do it for her had he known. He's just doing it out of GP, right? So
he asked Gypsy to go that day on Friday, and Gypsy said, "No, I'm not going." She says that Susan, Krenwinkel, and Kasabian were all just doing it for Charlie.
Right.
And Gypsy said that Tex was doing it because as revenge for those fuckers at Cielo. Now, I think she's slightly wrong. I think that Susan and Krenwinkel were lover brother.
Okay.
And I think that Tex and Linda were drugs revenge.
I tend to lean more that direction as well. And I think that Charlie wanted to be shut of Tex due to all the things we can see. Clearly, the Bernard Crow situation, the way he treated Rosine, that was some really terrible stuff. Rosina was really, really mistreated in that whole thing. And Charlie is kind of old-fashioned in some ways. He doesn't like a communist. He doesn't care for gay people. Black people are outside his purloin, his purview. Doesn't really care. You know what I mean? There's political elements, but you know, we're the twain. But then that gets complicated with Bernard Crow.
Yeah.
So then they have this relationship with Bernard Crow. Well, that fucks up Helter Skelter, right? The Negro member of the family, according to Diane Lake, who we're hoping is going to at some point join us. And we have these interminglings that countermand a lot of the narrative. So then how we got there to the night of the Tate murders is very fascinating. And I think they were each individual things, but I agree with you. I think it was two different camps who had two different motives, with Susan being crossover, because I believe they were all doing methamphetamine of a different variety of the time, methadone, whatever you wanted to call it. And I think they were having three-way sexual shit going down in that barn leading up to this whole thing. I think they had been tripping on and off for days. And I think the speed was keeping it going. And I think when you've tripped and you've stayed up and you've tripped multiple days, it does a different thing to the trip. And that's where LSD can be dark. I think LSD gets a terrible reputation. But I think the way it was used was accentuated to this whole thing. The way Nazi soldiers used it. You became very brutal and very dehumanized.
And the way that I understand it is that the family, quote unquote, was a user of marijuana and LSD. That was their thing.
Their
right?
primary culture, as is mine personally.
But what I recently came to understand is that it was the motorcycle gangs that were into meth.
Absolutely. I was raised by those guys, and I can speak on that because there were straight Satans living in my town of Ridgecrest, thanks to the hard work and the great collection of Mr. Bo Bushnell at the Outlaw Archive, who showed me wonderful photos of a family. They were both straight Satans, man and woman, both patch holders within the club, as I understand it, who lived in Ridgecrest in that era. So then, were they a stopping off point of family members in Ridgecrest? It opens up a whole new can of worms that I'm attempting to research right now. But there was all these relationships.
So that's where I thought
the speed came from.
Yeah, that's where they got it.
Well, Linda and Susan may have gotten the speed from the bikers because certain girls were spending a lot of time around the bikers. And from what I understand, Tex was a little more standoffish around guys. He was a little more shy and weird around guys. Around girls, he would warm up quicker, but he did kind of the aw shucks thing at first, whether that was real or an affectation after a while. Because he'd been in Los Angeles, how long at that point? Almost 2 years?
Yeah. Yep.
And so he had quite a bit of living under his belt before he became acquainted with the Manson family. And that was allegedly that whole Brian Wilson situation. So we get there. So he has run afoul of Manson time and time again, brought all kinds of terrible situations and repercussions on Manson and people that Manson liked. TJ being in the situation of the Bernard Crow confrontation. Okay, why did TJ not pull the gun out of Charles' waistband as was planned to draw down upon and shoot Crow as
you want me to tell you why?
Yes, let's get into that, please.
Because Bugliosi's wrong. He wasn't standing next to Manson. He was standing in the doorway. TJ never entered the apartment.
Thank you.
And Manson was standing in front of a coffee table or whatever. Crow was sitting down. Manson had the gun in his back waistband, right? And TJ was not the way that he makes it sound. within distance right here, you know?
Right. But I do believe that TJ, as I remember him as a young man, didn't seem like the type who would want to get mixed up in that. He seemed very you and me, where, hey, would you smoke a joint with me? If you're a marijuana user, like, yeah, I can. You're not going to think like, oh, the guy's gonna. He smoked weed with you. That's the guy who robbed your house.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wait, what? Because he smoked weed. Like, you're not a criminal if you smoke weed. Doing LSD, similar thing. Hey, you do methamphetamine and you're violent, or you do across a certain line, you're a different kind of person. You know, I don't feel in any way, shape, or form that TJ presented any type of physical threat at any point. I think he could react. I think he could support somebody.
And where the hell is Tex, man? Why didn't Tex go?
Precisely. And that's why he was sent on Cielo. It was Texas mess. He didn't even like show up and guide him. Okay, quick question. If Tex isn't with them, it just adds credence to Diane Lake's statement of their deep relationship with Crow, because he knew right where he was going.
Yeah.
So then that messes up this part of his story. Oh, he didn't know which Charlie he was talking to.
Man, there's a lot of fuckery going on with Bugliosi and Crow. Even the the shooting happened on August 1st. No, we know it happened on July 1st.
Absolutely.
It was Bugliosi trying to intentionally put it closer to the Cielo murders, you know?
Helter Skelter start
coming down.
Cranking up. It's coming down fast. Those are the other lines that are just so hackneyed in this whole story. Helter Skelter. It's coming down. Like, dude, I was so mad at George Stimson for a little while. Love this book, George. You're a great guy, but man, what an awesome myth. Craziest effing story you'll ever read. Just take it, like I say, as a screenplay. I sometimes say that about Tom O'Neill's book. Not in a deprecating way at all, or I'm not trying to insult the people. Just as a work of written words, what it conveys, what it affects the reader with, the way it's put together.
Yeah.
And it became such a mythos, and it's clearly greatly fabricated out of some facts. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The person who's responsible for the story also put the people in jail. So by doing so, this is reinforcing his malfeasance and making it airtight where you can't come back on him legally, where there was a great threat. He could have faced great consequences for his lies that were exposed later, and they started to kind of double back on him.
Yeah.
And part of it was burying it with this book to where there was just, you couldn't rebut it. It was just such a groundswell.
Yeah, as the prosecutor, once you've won the trial, right, you're the guy that put away Manson and all these people. So now at that point, you can write anything you want.
His story. And I just thought it was an incredible fable.
Bugliosi never knew that the internet was going to come around and that we were going to get access to all these documents.
But I just thought it was an incredible story. And I took it in as a kid. I took it at face value. I saw the sources of the underground water, the supposed underground cities. They weren't cities. That was misquoted. They're kind of apartments. You know what I mean? It's like a nice apartment. It's like a little beachfront thing. There's a little, I'll describe them at some point. They're gorgeous. These caverns that still exist in the desert. They become accessible at various seasons in various years, depending on water levels and different seasonal variations. And so I listened to it as a rapt audience. They were in my town. People were telling active stories about him. I didn't know I'd met 2 full-fledged family members as children, became friends with their children, hung out as contemporaries with Manson, basically nieces and nephews is what they were called. Wow. But just that shows the level of complexity. And he was still loyal and still friends, TJ, to Charlie, visited in jail, kept the allegiance, kept the word, kept the love.
So what do you think about Linda? Do you think that she owed Charlie as well?
Absolutely. And thanks for getting back to that, because I haven't heard this. So I'm going to claim on Twilight, DR. He was D-team. He owed Charlie, as everybody in that group owed Charlie. Tex, Susan, Patty, they all owed him. She owed him because she backed Bob Kasabian down. He dealt with Charlie Melton. He dealt with all these other things. And I don't think that was the totality of it. I think he was acquainted with the Kasabians for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you've got any materials relating to that? Because he's got a book coming out, folks. Oh, my word. No Sense Makes Sense, where we're going to make sense of all of this stuff, because it's chronological, it's in-depth, and it's just the thing the doctor's been ordering on this. Because like you said, they didn't know we were going to have the internet and Deb Silva. So could you enlighten us?
Yeah, so going back to 68, last episode we talked about Linda Kasabian was at the snake pit living with Bob and Charlie Melton, her husband, Bob Kasabian.
Very deeply intertwined.
Yeah, this is when Linda had her child, her daughter, Tanya, and Harold True's coming out to the snake pit.
Next door neighbor
Phil
to the
Phillips.
LaBiancas. Right.
Oh, yeah. Kaufman.
Right. Phil Kaufman, the road mangler.
Yeah, these guys are going out to get their drugs in the snake pit, right? In this commune that Charlie Melton's, running. We know after she gave birth to her child, she actually stayed at Harold True's house on Waverly for 2 weeks to recover.
And that was frequented quite often by various members of the family. And people look at this the wrong way, I think, sometimes. They see Charlie running around like he has a staff in a great flowing robe, and they just trail behind him, starting with Squeaky. Squeaky. And then there's Mary Bruner, and then there's Sandy. And they have like a little list, like it's a Peanuts in the gang. Like they never, as a group of 30 people, were spread out. 2 or 3 here, 1 there, 6 there.
So I think that Linda says that she met Charlie at Harold True's house, which I think is a lie. I think they met out at the snake pit.
I think they had a much longer relationship than she acknowledged, because that could have been used against her as the star prosecution witness. Now, this always comes back to what we'll talk about later, but I want to earmark that because I feel she owed Charlie, because she stole from Bob Kasabian, right? Her own husband.
So on July 4th, 1969, she allegedly meets Catherine Scher, right? Catherine Scher brings her to Spawn Ranch. She says that's the first time she ever been to Spawn Ranch. Here's where I have a question. In Paul Watkins' book, Paul says that in April, Charlie Melton comes out to the ranch looking for Linda. April of 69.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because there are these repetitions in these actions that gets completely left out of Helter Skelter. But we've got this slit screen that we're going to set the precedence for.
And he pulled the whole, allegedly the first in this April meeting at Spawn Ranch, Charlie pulled the old game of, are you ready to die? Oh no, I'm ready to die. He hands him the knife or the gun. Says, go ahead and take my life. And no. Okay, well, I can take your, that whole game.
Now I
that
can
Charlie,
take your life.
Yeah, he used to play that. So basically, Charlie sized him up. But we're talking Charlie Melton here,
right,
at the ranch, allegedly back in April. So now, fast forwarding to July, Linda is telling Gypsy and Tex, and she hooks up with Tex on July 4th, you know.
Apparently, sky, rockets and fly. He still holds his tongue about her. That's just amazing.
They're smoking a cigarette in bed, right? You know, and she starts in the way that Linda did, running her mouth. Oh, my husband's got and his buddy got a handful of cash down at their place down in Topanga. Tex says, well, you know, you think we could get our hands on that?
And now, okay, for those of you who are like, wait a minute, why would she do that? How many of you out there enjoy hip hop music? In the comments, let me know. Let me know. All right, there's quite a number of songs written about this. I mean, let's just start with Gangstar, right? It's called Betrayal. Like, that's the first move. You do the lover man on a girl, the dude she was with before, who she's thinking now because she's smoking the cigarette, and you unlocked the gates of hell between her, the wound, the hatchet. So there you are, having pierced the beef curtains, and she's feeling it and just gets loose on the goose. I think that's totally plausible. And I think that's probably exactly what happened. And I think Tex was a murderous F-U-C-K. I think he gotten into these drugs. I don't think he was an integral part of the family. It was a spiritual thing. There's a thing that happens when you meet Charlie and connect for real. I think it was an absolute spiritual connection. Lover, man, techniques aside, I think there was you did feel it.
I want to add something to the narrative that's never really been talked about. So Catherine Scher tells Linda, let's get in the car, let's go down there, let's get that money, right?
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't that they went directly to the lower Topanga Canyon snake pit to get it. On the way, they stopped in the town of Topanga, which is halfway through the canyon.
They hit the store, right?
They go to the store. They're behind the store smoking a doobie, right? And all of a sudden they run into Bob, her husband, and Charlie Melton. And they tell the girls, hey, we're about to go down to downtown LA. We got to go get our passports because we're about to make this trip down to South America.
Where they have been.
So they know that they have
drugs in for some time. Through their shipping channels. They've been sailing it in.
So the girls know they got a couple hours where the place that the money is free because they're going to be in downtown LA. So they head down there, ravage through the camper, get the money, bring it back to the ranch. And this is where there's a little bit of back and forth disagreement on this.
Discrepancies.
Some say that she went to go give the money to Charlie, and Charlie said, no. Knowing Charlie, from what I've heard from people that knew him, said that he actually looked down upon her because any broad that's willing to steal from her husband is not a woman that can be trusted.
I would tend to believe that. Obviously, having never met Charles Manson, but gathering all this information as we do over the years, you can tend to see someone's patterns. And that seems to be something that I think Charlie might have actually not only felt, but said. Yeah, for sure.
So to me, it looks like Linda and Tex used this money to start to put it towards their drug enterprise.
Right.
Exactly.
I don't think Charlie was involved. I don't think Charlie, again, people stick up for Charlie in these ways that seem insignificant and seem to make people look crazy. Like these interviews, they edit them all up where you'll say something like that. Like, well, Tex, blah, 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 some small detail. And then they'll take it out of context and flip it in this way where it just seems like they're dismissing the entire murders. They're dismissing the seriousness and the gravity of the situation, right? In these really flippant ways. And it's why people will not do interviews and enlighten us anymore, unfortunately, because the way they've been mistreated by the media. And it's just such a real disservice to this entire story, which keeps unfolding.
So Bob and Charlie Melton should come back. The money's gone, right? And knowing as many people as they knew at Spawn Ranch, they head out there, right? So this is not the first time that Melton's been there.
Right.
And there he's already friends with Paul Watkins. They used to travel together
years earlier.
Yeah. He knew Bobby Beausoleil, Catherine Scher, which were in his
year and a half, 2 years earlier,
right?
At least.
And so he has this confrontation with Manson. Where's my money? Basically.
Well, hold up. Even if let's just say he was looking for his money, right? Like, fuck, my money popped up, right? Like, even if he didn't put it together, like, it was those fucking girls. We saw them. Understanding they did some intelligence gathering. Like, let's just say he didn't put that together. Let's just say he's off on one thinking whatever. If I was him, I would assume if I'm looking for my money, I would probably just go out to Spawn Ranch, making the circuit of where I would begin to look for my money. It was fairly close. He knew, like you say, a great punch list of people out there, the main players in this group. He knew.
Yep.
So if you know 6 people out there, that means you know 30 people who might help you. So you go out there because it's a sympathetic crowd, let's say.
Yeah.
Let's say he's not suspecting Charlie or Linda. And he just runs out there and is like, hey, man, could you guys, I got beat out of my money. You guys want this dope, right? I'm bringing all the drugs in and this was the money you guys been helping me earn. Let's say there was a relationship like that even. Or, you know what I mean? Like, hey, we're cooperating. Don't fuck me on this deal. Who knows how it went down, right?
So Linda Kasabian is just straight up a trifling ass bitch.
There it is. So who knows? But let's go with the narrative that he did confront Charlie. Okay, I'm just saying, like, let's just put that other thing out there. Let's just say it. Or maybe he knew Tex did it. Maybe he was like, hey, Charlie, your boy fucking Tex. So then it's strike 2, right?
Yeah.
Like, who knows what actually happened? Because here's the thing that's interesting. No defense on the part of the Manson family during their trial, 1970/71. Now, that begs a lot of questions. When was that decision made? You know, I think maybe it was later, because why would they let Linda get away with all this stuff as the family? Why wouldn't they question any of this stuff just to even be as they were? If you look at the spirit of them in the court, snitch in time, the sign about Paul Watkins and everybody, right? They would have at least been sarcastic, I think. And your thoughts on that? I mean, I think they would have acknowledged it, right?
Yeah, I mean, her in the trial, like, we got to get to that, but before there, we have to, this month that she was around the family, right?
And so there was a long
so she's making it sound like Catherine Scher rescued her from her
abusive husband.
Yeah,
she was in the sketchy situation.
You know, all these people come and they're just loving on her, loving on her daughter at
July 4th, allegedly.
Yep.
Way before that.
Yep. She's got a little like romantic thing going on with Tex too, you know.
Big time.
She's getting, you know, she's also hooking up. I think she only had sex with Charlie like one time, you know, like
he just has to run it down.
Yeah.
Now her baby,
she's annoying as hell though, man, the whole time.
And just bring in trouble. Well, she leaves her baby, and people are like, well, she wasn't afraid of them.
No, that's the way it's always portrayed in these movies, right? That she's this sweet girl, and they're taking care of her child, dude. They're not holding her child for ransom. The kid's playing with all the other little kids. It's being cared for by the younger girls, you know?
Absolutely, dude.
Yeah.
I don't buy that for 1 second. Having met, you know, personally, 2 women of the family.
Yeah.
And knowing their character and seeing them around kids and knowing the way they talk.
Dude, they treated those kids better than they treated themselves, man.
I apply this to my daughter. I tell her, I say, hey, man, I follow you, because that's what he said. Let the children lead. And I think that is just the ultimate. So we're here. We're gonna get back to this obviously in the next episode, episode 37. But we've now breached the home. We're gathering the victims. And we're just dropping these other precursors because there's so many live action things that correlate with the story later that need to be tied together. This relationship with Harold True. My goodness.
It's very important.
Next week. Oh my goodness. I want to talk about that, but I think we're going to have Sam back, our dear buddy who took a hard left on us. Twilighters, get in the comments about Sam. I didn't know he was going to go all hella government on us. Like, he was heavier than 5 pounds of government cheese on that shit.
I'm going to drop this, man. Hopefully
please.
Sam won't be upset, but he needs to be appreciated for his contribution. So most of you know him as Sam Smith in all the groups, right? Very active. No.
Okay.
I'm not going to say his name, but what I do want to, I think it's important that people know Star Vigo on mansonblog.com has written articles with Deb, with George. Star Vigo is our friend Sam Smith. So he's been around as a contributor for Manson Blog for a long, since 2016.
Man, the more I learn on Manson Blog, y'all check it out. The more I can't believe how uncivilized and absolutely horrible we are as a Manson community now compared to the way Deb was running things. All the places they were able to visit, clearly that took a lot of time, money, and resources to make happen. All these people were getting along and just being wonderful. So look at my little innocent face. I'm learning about it. I'm very humbled by it. I acknowledge my newbie status. Folks, yellow brick road, excuse me. Y'all out there ahead of us who paved the way, you've left for different reasons, grandkids, time, spiritual things, whatever. If you could come back, we're trying to rejuvenate the well, get this whole wellspring of information coming back. And with the endorsement of Deb Silva, I feel pretty confident doing it. And we're going to sign out. Will you let us think about it? You got some final thoughts for us, my dear friend?
Yeah, man. I just want to thank all you Twilighters for just sticking with us, however many episodes we've done now at this point, man. Yeah. And also for your contributions in the Facebook group. No Sense Makes Sense. If you haven't made your way there, please get there. It's a great community of researchers that are working towards the truth of this case. There's not a whole lot of Manson worship or anything like that.
No, but we acknowledge them. And that's the thing, is like everyone's going to have affection for different things. Like, I find some of the victims very fascinating and interesting people, and have done great research on them, and have my own feelings about them. But, you know, having the way I came at it from inadvertently knowing two family members as a child and growing up with their kids, I've got my own bend on it.
I just want to end this episode in a spirit of thankfulness. I want to thank our dear producer, Alex, for just being a complete stud, a legend. We couldn't make this happen without him. I want to thank your wife for just being a blessing this whole time.
Thank you.
And
love of my
providing
life.
Welcoming us into her home, which allows us to come into your guys' home.
It's great stuff, you know, and the sacrifices we've been making. Alex's wife has a wonderful, wonderful gym in the area. It's known as Exhale. They are just a wonderful community in and of themselves. And for us to all be able to make these sacrifices, as you're doing, taking time off from the book you're about to unleash upon the world, it's going to be incredible. You're going to be working on the editing process pretty soon, I understand. And that's why we're just going with the Facebook page. No Sense Makes Sense to accentuate A, your book, but B, I think there's enough groups out there. I think we at Twilight Garage identify with that page wholeheartedly. Also with Mike Ketcher's page, where there's a lot of good overlap, which is, of course,
MFM 1970.
Really wonderful guy. We love us some Catcher and want to thank you again for joining. Please buy our merchandise we don't have out yet. Like, subscribe, and just keep it coming on the notifications. We're going to have some fun short stories for you and some other things coming up. Much love, Twilighters.